Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Big Questions, Small Steps. My name is Amanda and I'm so glad that you could join me today. Today our channel is taking a slightly different turn. We're going to talk about something that's a part of every Jewish household where there's more than one person and even when there's single people. But it's something that Christianity also has as well. It's just slightly different. And I'm going to be quite honest and quite personal about how I choose to practice this portion. Today we're going to be talking about the family purity laws, or how your family respects that intimate circle that is a household. Okay? So, tune in and let's get started. So, for those of you who are new to my channel, I was a Christian. I was part of the United Church of Christ for 40 years. And the idea of being modest, the views of sexuality and things like that, they certainly existed in Christianity. But when I decided to start on my conversion path towards Judaism, I quickly learned that their ideas in general were different than what I was taught. They are a little bit more stringent at times and a little bit more difficult to understand from surface level. So it took me a little while. When I was in Christianity, there were certainly different denominations and different belief systems regarding whether you should have sex before marriage, whether you should dress modestly, and what that style of modesty meant. When I was in Christianity, for example, I taught Sunday school, and then I also taught confirmation age kids, and we went around to different worship services and we participated and we learned about what their expectations are and things like that. There were places that we went that if you were born a female, you must wear a skirt or a dress that went to at least your mid-calf, if not down to your ankles. You were not allowed to wear pants. You were not allowed to wear anything form-fitted. You couldn't let your collarbone show. You couldn't let your elbows show. You couldn't let your shoulders show. There were different rules for different denominations that we went and visited, but they all had a general idea of you should dress as if you were expecting a special guest, or in that case, God or Jesus, into your home. So they had different expectations as to what you should look like. And then there were also different connotations based on the families, whether you should have sex before marriage, whether you could date before a certain age, whether you could have friends who were people of the other gender if you were dating or were married. There's different rules and regulations. It's different by denomination, so I can't even go into the specifics on, in general, Christianity believes this. But I could say that in general, most of Christianity frowns upon premarital sex. They feel like that's something that should be saved for a husband and a wife, or somebody that is committed to another person. That's what they believe. So when I started converting to Judaism, I remember in depth this class in particular that we started talking about nida, which is one of the aspects of family purity and the family purity laws. And there's basically different restrictions, different guidelines, different suggestions on how you can keep that family unit special, how you can maintain its privacy, how you can strengthen that bond by observing these different mitzvahs or laws. And at first I was a little bit reluctant to them, because I'm just gonna skip to the good part. I'm going to read the different parts in the Torah that talk about these, and then I'll share first what my initial thought was, and then I will share about where my stance is now, okay? If I am a little distracted, it's because our family received 2 new kitties and they are needing my attention a little bit. Sorry. So this is one of the little guys. And by little, I mean it figuratively because he is certainly not little. This is Boo, and he is a little bit of a lover and he wants to be wherever I am. So if you see me reaching down or something, it's probably to pet him so that he gives us time to talk, okay? Sorry for that little bit of a diversion. Okay, back to the Torah, now that Boo has wandered off somewhere else. So in the Torah, there are 3 verses in specificness that talk to the family purity laws. Okay. Also, sometimes people call it Nida. Okay. They're all in Leviticus, but they're different phrases in Leviticus. So we're going to start in Leviticus chapter 15, verses 19 through 24. And it says, when a woman has a discharge, her discharge being blood from her body, she shall remain in her impurity 7 days. Whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Anything that she lies on during her impurity shall be unclean. Anything that she sits on shall be unclean. Anyone who touches her bedding shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. And anyone who touches any object on which she has sat shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. Be it the bedding or be it the object by which she sat on, touched it, he shall be unclean until evening. And if a man lies with her, her impurity is communicated to him, and he shall be unclean for 7 days. And any bedding in which he shall lie shall be unclean. I didn't like this verse. Gonna be completely honest. I felt it was very accusatory, and for something as natural as having a menstrual cycle to be deemed as unclean, I felt degraded in some ways, and like there was something wrong with me because I had a period, when it happens to a majority of females. And I didn't like the connotation that I was assuming with it. Now, when I went to Judaism 101, that's one of the classes you take when you start on your conversion journey, they explained it in a way that kind of shaped my mind and my thinking about it differently. So they took it away, they helped me understand that it's not necessarily that there's something wrong with me, but it's more out of a respect. So they realized that when a woman has her menstrual cycle, she's shedding her uterus, and it's almost like a mourning period for the child that could have been born. Okay? The uterus lining is shed because there was no child in there. So it's a mourning for that potential of life, and giving that respect to the woman who is in their menstrual cycle, knowing that they have hormones that are all over the place, and frequently people don't want to be touched, or they want to be touched more, or they just need a little bit more space at times during that particular time in their life. And knowing that that's an absolutely fine thing. Trying to give them the respect in that space is how they framed it. And I can understand and appreciate that, but I'm a bit stubborn, and my amazing boyfriend will attest to that, and my family will attest to that. And I don't necessarily like when people tell me what I can and can't do. I'm completely open to suggestions, but when they say, oh no, you can't do this because of this, I don't care for that. I get frustrated by that. So I struggled with that one, and I quite honestly still struggle with that to a certain degree now. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's get to the second verse that Torah says about Nida, or the family laws of purity. This again is in the book of Leviticus. It's Leviticus 18, verse 19. And it says, do not come near a woman during her period of uncleanliness to uncover her nakedness. Again, I don't like being told what to do, and I got frustrated with that verse. More so the first verse, but this one as well, because it's basically in my head, they were saying, no, stop, stay away. You can't touch her. She's dirty. And I don't like referring to normal bodily functions as dirty. Feeling like there's something wrong with me because I have a normally body function. I didn't appreciate that. I felt judged by that, me personally. So let's jump to the third verse in Torah. Torah says in the book of Leviticus, chapter 20, verse 18, if a man lies with a woman in her infirmity and uncovers her nakedness, he has laid here her flow, and she is opposed to her blood flow. Both of them shall be out of them among the people. So basically, if you have sexual intercourse, or if you're laying with someone and you could potentially be near them when they're having their menstrual cycle, you're both unclean now. And you should both be cast out from the crowd for a little bit until you are clean again. Again, I don't like being told what to do. Shocker. And I don't like natural body functions to be classified as unclean, or I'm dirty, or there's something wrong with me. Again, my Judaism 101 class spun that for me, or helped me understand it's not about that it's dirty, unclean, or like it's not an okay thing to have happen. It's out of respect for what that person is going through. It's more or less to give the woman power over, this is my space, this is my time. You can't do different things to me or expect different things from me during this time because this is happening to me. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate being aware that at different times throughout the month and different times throughout your life, you need or want different things. Okay? I can appreciate that. There are different interpretations as to what those three verses entail. There are people who will not have any interactions physically with their spouse during that time period. They will not hold hands. They will not kiss. They will not sleep in the same bed. That's what some people do. Now, are there some that do? Yeah. And every family's dynamic and how they observe these laws of Nida, or these family purity laws, is really up to them. It's something that they decide, and they can seek guidance from a rabbi, but it's what makes sense to them, and it's what they feel is the best interpretation of those verses. Everybody else is just kind of making guesses. You've got to decide for your family what makes sense. So, like I said before, I'm going to just list a whole bunch of different things that people sometimes do. Again, not every Jewish person observes Nida or the family purity laws, and they certainly don't observe it in the same way. Okay, so some don't have any interactions at all. Some sleep in different beds or in different bedrooms during that time period. There are some where they will not pass objects directly to each other. So if a woman, for example, was on their menstrual cycle and they were setting food on the table, they would not serve a dish to the other person if they were on their menstrual cycle. They would place it on the table and the other person would have to pick it up. This same law exists after a person so anytime there is an emission from the body, so menstrual cycle or after childbirth, you typically bleed for a number of weeks. So if a Jewish couple is having a baby, there are some where they will not pass the baby from the mom to the husband or the husband to the mom, because there will need to be somebody in between so that there is that removal of temptation. Because there are some people who don't feel they can handle certain exchanges, that it leads to increased desires. So they put stricter observances in. It's all, again, all in how they interpret it and how they live it in their lives. Another thing that people do is they will not have flirtatious conversations. Guess who's back? Or they will not have different say different phrases that carry any lustful thoughts towards the other person. Again, out of respect, because they think that words can lead to actions and actions can lead to more that the Torah says not to do. And lastly, there are some who will not undress or show parts of themselves to others when they're during that time period. So there are people who they will not show their hair, for example, during their menstrual cycle. They won't change clothes in front of another person during their menstrual cycle. Again, it's different people's observances. Am I saying that any of them are wrong? No. Am I saying that I do all of them? No. I'm merely showing you the whole spectrum. And typically when you are hyper observant of it, you are trying to create barriers or extra rules in place to prevent you from crossing that line. So if the Torah says this is the guideline that I want you to keep, there are people who are like, okay, I can keep this boundary, but I know that if I do this or this or this or this, it's going to tempt me to cross that boundary. So they're going to put their boundary over here so they avoid that temptation of crossing the line in the first place. And there are people who can make their boundary be the same as in Torah because they don't feel they have that same level of temptation. Again, it's their personal preference and their family, their household's decision. That's just what they do. So when it talks about in the Torah about you're unclean, that basically is a period of time where you're respecting that space. And then the way that a woman or anybody like that would get out of this stage of uncleanliness would be to go to a mikveh. Now, a mikveh is a natural flowing body of water. There are some that look like very upscale spas, and you go into this bathroom, and you have to clean every inch of yourself. You have to clean underneath your fingernails. You have to make sure you have your contacts out. You can't have any makeup. You can't have any lotions on. You have to even wash your hair, but you can't put conditioner on. You have to have every pore of your body be open to be surrounded with this natural water. So there's a whole cleanliness period. Then you go into this spa-like space where there is this pool where you step a couple steps down, and then you need to fully submerge. Nothing can be touching the walls. Your hair needs to be under the water. Your feet picked up from the ground. You can't be touching the sides. And you say different prayers. And for some, you only dunk once. Some you dunk 3 times. Some you dunk multiple times. There's not a limit as to how many. But that purification of dunking into the water, I almost forgot. You also have to, while you're under the water, you have to open your eyes and open your mouth. So nothing is protected from being in the water. And then when you come out, you're supposed to be fully clean and you're a new person in the covenant with God or Hashem. Okay? So that's what happens when you go into the mikveh. Now, there are people who every time they have a period, they go to the mikveh. There are people who don't. And that's their choice. I do have a list. Many people think of mikveh and they think that it's only a female thing, and that's not accurate. There are men who go to the mikveh every day, and we'll talk about that. There are some things that typically men will go to the mikveh for, and then there are also things where women go to the mikveh. Now, they frequently will use the same mikvahs, but they will have different times of the day. Typically, the men are, if it's a multi-gender mikveh, then the men will have daytime periods and the women will have nighttime periods. Otherwise, there'll be like a whole mikveh for women and a whole mikveh for men, depending on your area. Okay? Now, if you are a man, there are certain times where you may go to the mikveh. Okay? The mikveh there's 2 in particular times when most people would go to the mikveh if you're a man. It would be after your conversion, or as a like final result. He's back. A final result of your conversion. And then the other one would be right before your wedding day. Those are the two that are typical for men to go to the mikveh. But there are also some who go every day. There are some who go every Shabbat, which is Friday night into Saturday night. There are some who will go right before Yom Kippur, which is one of the high holy days in the Jewish calendars. It's a very big deal. It's the closing of the book of life for that year, to start the year fresh again. Okay. There are men who will go to the mikveh every time they have a seminal emission. Okay. Different people, different decisions on how they do that. There are men who go to the mikveh every time they have intercourse. There are men who go to the mikveh anytime they come in contact with a human corpse. So if you are a doctor, for example, and you have a patient that passes away and you were the surgeon that was performing on them when they passed, you may choose to go into the mikveh to cleanse yourself of that other person. That's their decision. Okay. There are people who will go to the mikveh, and they're men, and they will do that because they came in contact with the carcass of a non-kosher animal. So for some reason, say they were driving around and they hit a vulture and they pulled the vulture's carcass out from the grill of their car. There are some who will go to the mikveh for that. That's their choice. I don't know why you would be hitting a vulture. I don't know. But there are some who do that. And then there's also people who will go to the mikveh if they're diagnosed with a quote-unquote spiritual leprosy, or some kind of illness that's all they can describe it as. It's a spiritual leprosy. That's men. Again, there are some who will go once or twice. Maybe they'll just go before their wedding because they were born Jewish. Maybe they're just going to go before their conversion is finalized. Maybe they're going every day. Different people, different reasons and different beliefs, and that's fine. It's for nobody to judge. Likewise, for the females, there are times and days where they go to the mikveh. Again, they would go to the mikveh as part of finishing their conversion. They would go to the mikveh before their wedding day. So the wedding day was mentioned in both the male and the female because they believe that when you get married, your two bodies are forming into one unit. And so you're starting a new life together. So taking that ritual bath in the mikveh, you're washing away what was, and you are becoming a new person. You are part of a couple. You are not just Amanda and her amazing boyfriend now. No, it's our family, our couple. You're new people. Okay? Some women will go every time after they menstruate. Now, if you remember a while back, I talked a little bit about Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews. It's based on demographically where they are. They have different numbers of how many days before they go to the mikveh. So the Ashkenazi will do 5 days. Okay? So 5 days of your menstrual cycle. Longer if you're still bleeding, but their minimum is 5. In the Sephardic tradition, their minimum is 4. It's just how they do it. There are other people who will wait 7 days for their menstrual cycle and then an additional 7 days because that puts them in the fertile period for when they rejoin with their spouse, and that is supposed to help create that ability to have that physical connection again, would help to increase your desire to want to be physical with your husband again, and hopefully boost the chances of you becoming pregnant. Again, different paths, different understandings, different practices. Not judging, that's just how different people do it. They will also have women who will go to the mikveh every time they have an abnormal bodily discharge. So if they have a wound and it's weeping and that wound is now healed, because you can't go to the mikveh with an open cut or open sore or while you are bleeding. So after that's healed, then you go to the mikvah to have that all washed away, and then you are a new person again. They will have women that go to the mikvah every time they have intercourse. I do think because there are mikvah attendants, so there's people that have to kind of watch and observe to make sure that you're fully submersed when you dunk into the mikvah. Oh, I also forgot to mention, when you go in the mikvah, you're nude. Again, you can't have any barriers. So, yep, they're having a lot of discretion, but I can only imagine that if you're a mikvah attendant and you see different people come multiple times a day, you may kind of question or start to think, what's going on there? But again, part of Judaism is you're not supposed to compare and judge other people for how they practice. So that's them. Sorry, side note. Another reason that a woman might go to the mikvah is if they came in contact with a human corpse, again, a non-kosher animal carcass, or if they were diagnosed with spiritual leprosy. So there's different reasons that people go to the mikvah. Many females, if they live in a Jewish community, will go to the mikvah at least every time they finish their menstrual cycle. Some don't. Some will just go when they convert. Some will just go before their wedding. Every person is different. I can tell you that I personally do not live in a Jewish community, so there is not a mikvah readily available to me. I don't go to the mikvah very frequently. Do I plan to go to the mikvah when I finish my conversion? Yes. Do I plan to go to the mikvah before I get married? Yes. But there are other times where, to me, understanding the verses, I don't feel like I need to have that ritual bath to reconnect and feel clean, to be able to connect with other people during different time periods. That doesn't make sense to me. I do think cleanliness is important. I just don't know that I need to go to that extreme. Is me personally. Now, I've said time and time again how a couple chooses to practice their family purity, or how even individuals choose to practice the laws of Nida or the family purity laws. That's up to them. Even their dress is up to them. That's all part of the same thing. How, when, how frequently you go to the mikvah is up to you. What you choose to do as far as sleeping arrangements when somebody is on their menstrual cycle is up to you. How you choose to dress is up to you. Now, I personally, before I started on this Jewish conversion journey, I didn't really think about any of that. I did what felt good to me, and I didn't really worry about anything else. I will say that since I'm on this conversion journey, it's been more mindful of when I choose to do things. I'm more mindful of the way I dress. When I go to synagogue for my temple meetings, I make sure that I'm dressed more modestly. I tend to not show my chest and have clothing that really hugs everything, because not everybody needs to see that. That's for me, and that's for my partner, and that's all that needs to see that. But at the same time, if it's 100 degrees, I am just fine taking my jean jacket off when I get out of synagogue, and I will drive home in a tank top dress. That's just fine with me. But I don't try to go and flash it to everybody. I don't need to worry about what other people think. I need to worry about myself and making sure that I'm keeping myself in a place where I'm trying to protect that space for myself and my amazing boyfriend or my future husband or my family, so that I can respect my family and I can respect Hashem at the same time, because I'm choosing to stop myself to a certain degree. That's what I choose to do. Now, does that mean that that's what you have to do? No, certainly not. But I just wanted to share because it was interesting to me as I was on my conversion journey. The similarities and yet differences. They have different frames of mind in Christianity and Judaism as far as, is it okay to have connections before marriage? Is it okay to have moments where you're holding each other's hand before marriage? Is it okay to sleep with the same person once you're married and you have your period? There are people who choose to have complete separate bedrooms. That's their choice. But when I came to this class on family purity, again, I'm stubborn and I don't like being told what to do. And so this one kind of raised some questions and really made me think about what would be the best way to honor my family, honor my future husband, honor Hashem with this relationship and my dynamics. It was something I learned, so now I'm sharing it with you, because the more we learn, the more we grow. I hope you learned something today, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you can see more content whenever we push it out. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.